We are wrapping up 2022, and this means it's time for Stitching Holiday Traditions. These first-person narratives from members of the Black Women Stitch community are beautiful narratives of how sewing, creativity, and holiday celebration all coalesce into a beautiful time of family, tradition, and fun. So tune into the Stitch Please podcast this month to hear stories from Lena King, Vanessa Martina, Florence Taylor, Martha McIntosh, and Kamali Obiagu, all talking about how their creativity shapes their holiday celebrations. And as we wrap up 2022, we invite you to join the Black Women Stitch Patreon. Your direct support makes a huge difference in our ability to bring the podcast to you every week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And here comes Stitching Holiday Traditions.
Hi there. I was really excited a little while ago when Lisa got in contact with me and asked if I'd like to be part of the Stitch Please podcast, just sharing with listeners some of my holiday traditions and how my crafting weaves into that. I thought that sounded like a really fun topic and I'd be happy to be involved with that. So here I am. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Lena King. I am married and I have 2 daughters. I live in London in the United Kingdom. I was actually born in Ghana in West Africa, but have been in the UK since I was 2, and I'm a lot older than that. I love to craft, and my main crafting is sewing. I love to sew garments for myself and for my family, but mostly for me, if I'm honest. I used to do quite a bit of sewing for my eldest daughter, especially when she was little. Then life got busy and sewing sort of was pushed into the sidelines. But it was always something that I loved. So I did get back into sewing gradually a few years ago. Started out sewing small things, sewing bags. And then, I was more interested in sewing clothes and learning how to get clothes to fit really well. So I started going on Instagram and I found this whole community of sewists, really talented people. So I started following loads of people, getting ideas on what to make and sharing my sewing. And it's just been so much fun. I really love being part of that Instagram family of sewists. So that's me and my crafting. I have tried very many different crafts over my lifetime. I really do love having a go at something, just trying it out myself and seeing where I go with that. I don't know whether that's the school teacher in me, that's what my training is. Love to have a go, love to make a mess. So I've tried different things, but sewing is the thing that really sticks, I think, with me as a craft. I also really love to cook, to bake and just eat the things that I make. So I really love exploring different recipes. So talking about the holidays, as I'm here to talk about, that really does involve 2 of my favourite things, cooking and sewing. So let me tell you about some of my holiday traditions. For me, the holidays is all about Christmas. I'm a Christian and I've been going to church ever since I was tiny, going along to church with my family. And then when I came to faith myself, carried on going to church and being involved as a church member, being very active in my church. And my husband now is actually a church minister, and we serve together in our local church. So Christmas time can be very, very busy for us. We like to host and entertain our own families, but we also extend a welcome to church members who are on their own, and we love having people round at our house. It's quite funny, actually, when Lisa asked me if I wanted to be involved in this podcast, she asked me back in November. And everybody who knows me would know that I'm a bit bar humbug when it comes to getting ready for Christmas. I love it, but I don't like to think about it until the 1st of December. For me, that's when Christmas starts. That's when I can start playing the Christmas music. Before then, I don't want to know. I don't want to put the decorations out. I don't want to do anything like that. I like to gradually get into Christmas. So it was quite funny to have this phone call in November, which really meant that I had to get my act together and do some thinking about Christmas. So Christmas tends to be quite a big deal for us in our household. And it always has been. Growing up, my mum was a real, she used to get really excited about Christmas herself because she loves to cook. My mum loves to get those big pots on the stove. She likes to get that huge turkey in the oven and all sorts of other meats. And she loves having lots of people around. That's how I grew up. We would have our cousins round. And even if we went to our cousins' houses, we never went empty-handed. My mum would always cook or bake and take the food there. So Christmas and food for me and celebration and family just goes hand in hand. So yeah, for me, Christmas Day, planning the menu, I love to do that. I love to get all the food magazines and flick through and try something new. And my sewing, like I said, takes a little bit of a back seat. Although every year I think to myself, do you know what? I'm going to sew some presents for people. And I plan it in my mind. I think about who I want to sew for and what they're going to get. And I think about that. And yet it never seems to materialize. I just can't get my act together enough to sew presents for people for Christmas. I have one year I managed to sew lots of little gift bags for people, and that was about it. I'm just not organised enough. That comes from not thinking about it until December, really. I need to be thinking about it way in advance if I'm going to actually be able to sew for my friends and family. So instead, I do often end up cooking and baking gifts. I love to make little truffles, chocolate truffles. I love to make short bread biscuits and little cakes and chutneys and things like that. So people often get edible gifts from me, but very, very few people get sewn gifts from me. It might change one year, but it won't change this year. So as I've said, for me, Christmas prep begins really in earnest on December the 1st. And that's when I get to bring down from the attic our little advent calendar. Some probably 12 or 15 years ago, I found a crafting magazine and it had this template for making an advent calendar using out of little stockings. Make 24 little stockings and tie them onto some beautiful cord as your advent calendar. And I thought, what a great idea. I made that some years ago. It was really, really fiddly. These little cute little stockings. I made them to match my then living room. I made blue and tan coloured and red stockings. And it's a really pretty little calendar, which I used to drape around our fireplace. But in this house where we are, I drape them along our hallway, a stair banister. So for me, every year, get that calendar down, tie that up, either stuff the stockings with little clues. That's what I used to do back when the girls were younger. Put clues in there and they'd have to hunt around the house for their chocolate or their sweets. But now I tend to just stuff some candy in there. The stockings are big enough to hold 2 sweets, thankfully, for the girls. So yeah, that's one of the things. I haven't sewn many things for Christmas. That sort of the decorations that come out. We've together, myself and the girls, have made little Christmas decorations that we pull out and put on the tree each year. And I've also managed to sew a couple of Christmas tablecloths. In fact, one tablecloth didn't get sewn for years. I bought this fabric and I forgot to hem the edge before Christmas. I remember one year, but just pulled it out anyway and all the edges were frayed. And then I put it back and then the next year it'd come out still frayed. And then one year I was like, that's enough, Lena. Will you just hem that tablecloth? Something else that I started to do last year and I will hopefully continue to do is I did think that, we go through a lot of wrapping paper at Christmas time. And yet I thought that's a bit of a waste. I tend to have lots of offcuts and scraps of fabric every year from my sewing. And last year I wrapped quite a number of the presents up in fabric that I had, and that made a nice little additional present for anybody. So yeah, I enjoyed doing that, and I'm going to do that again for this year. Use some of my scrap fabric to wrap presents up in, and people get a nice bit of fabric as well as their present. One tradition I have brought along with me from my childhood is that of having something new to wear on Christmas Day. My mum was a real stickler for that. Every year she would insist that we all had something new to wear on Christmas Day. When we were younger, she did quite a lot of sewing herself. My mum is a trained seamstress, and she did a lot of sewing for us girls when we were growing up. So she'd make us a new dress for Christmas Day, and you know how it goes. We soon get fed up of mum's dresses and we want to buy our own and stuff. But we'd all, and my brother too, would have something new to wear on Christmas Day. I didn't realise how much that was in me and how much I really brought that into my family now. And I get all excited about Christmas Day. Let's have something new to wear. So in the last few years, I've been sewing garments for my daughters and I to wear on Christmas Day. My poor husband rarely gets a look in. I may this year make him a pair of pajamas, but don't tell him in case it doesn't actually happen. But yeah, every year I try to sew something for the girls. A few years ago, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, I found some really lovely, sparkly, stretchy fabric. And I bought enough of that to make some things for myself and my daughters. I used one pattern, the Adrienne blouse from Friday Pattern Company, and I took that pattern and I hacked it in 3 different ways so that we each had a very different looking top from that pattern to sparkle our way through Christmas, and the girls really, really liked those.
Get your stitch together with the Black Women Stitch 2023 wall calendar. Loaded with full color illustrations that center and celebrate Black women, girls, and femmes in sewing, the calendar also has historical resources from Black history, women's history, activist history, and sewing history. New this year, thanks to our friends at Row House Publishing, is a full slate of Row House titles from 2023 that will help you get your stitch together all year long. So head out to the blackwomenstitch.org website and we'll help you get your stitch together.
Last year, my eldest daughter found some lovely red fabric and a pattern for a beautiful V-necked dress with a lovely circle skirt. And she asked me to make that for her for Christmas Day. So I did, and it was beautiful. That year also, she'd asked whether she could cook Christmas dinner. And it was a little bit of a dare because she said to me that I was just too precious about Christmas Day cooking. I always wanted to cook and I didn't like anybody in the kitchen. So to prove to her that I wasn't, I said she could cook. Boy, was that hard. I almost regretted it. It was so hard not to be in the kitchen and not be in the top chef because I really, really, really do love all that Christmas cooking. But she did a great job. She made us a beautiful meal, looking like a domestic goddess all the while in her lovely red dress. Meanwhile, my youngest daughter that year was being very much, I don't like pretty dresses. I don't want anything for Christmas. I don't want you to make me anything. However, I did find some black fabric because she was all into, I just want to wear black. I found some black fabric, which was a bit speckly, and I asked whether she liked it, and she did. And I made a very simple, neat little top, and she loved it, and it looked great with her skinny jeans. So I thought, phew, she has something new. And I made for myself a little black dress out of satin fabric, which was the first time I worked with that. It was very slippery and it frayed a lot, but I really loved the dress that I made out of that. So yeah, that was that. I don't know what I'm going to do this year. I've actually done a lot of sewing for myself this year, so I can't really justify making something brand new for myself. I just need to dive into my wardrobe of makes. But for the girls, I might make something new for them if I get organised for that. But yeah, I was thinking this year of making pyjamas for everybody, but I haven't even got that going yet. And I think if anybody deserves some new clothing from me, it's probably my husband, because he, like I said, He always gets neglected. So there you go. That's the King's Christmas for you. If you came round to our house on Christmas Day, you will get well fed for sure. You wouldn't see us sat round in Christmas jumpers. We don't really tend to do that. I'm not a huge fan of Christmas jumpers myself. But you would probably see us in new clothes that I've made. And we'd all be pretty laid back, having a chilled time with family and friends. It's been great talking to you. It's been great sharing some of these things. It's been nice to reminisce about my childhood and what Christmases were like growing up. It's great. We all have so many different traditions. So all that's left for me to do is to wish you a happy Christmas, happy holidays, and thank you for listening.
You've been listening to Stitching Holiday Traditions, a special podcast episode of the Stitch Please podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode of Stitching Holiday Traditions. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And to help you get your stitch together for 2023, we invite you to pick up a copy of the Black Women Stitch wall calendar. Loaded with full color illustrations that center and celebrate Black women, girls, and femmes in sewing, the calendar also has historical resources from Black history, women's history, activist history, and sewing history. New this year, thanks to our friends at Row House Publishing, is a full slate of Row House titles from 2023 that will help you get your stitch together all year long. So head out to the blackwomenstitch.org website and we'll help you get your stitch together.